You know, just here in the last few days, we had cops shot at on 35 on that routine traffic stop that turned into a police chase from Franklin County into Johnson County that ended up in Gardner. And if you were driving home on 35 on Tuesday afternoon, you probably dealt with that backup. That was a total mess. And then, of course, over the weekend, a KCPD officer was shot. Thankfully, looks like he's going to be okay, but the officer was shot during, once again, a routine traffic stop right here in Kansas City. We know about Jonathan Diller, the former NYPD detective who was killed here just a couple of weeks ago in what also appeared to be a routine traffic stop. So these situations are incredibly dangerous, and I've used this tidbit quite a bit over the last couple of weeks because I saw it from our next guest, Joe Gamaldi, who is on KCMO Talk Radio. He is the Fraternal Order of Police National Vice President. You may have seen him on Fox News and elsewhere. He gave a great, it's a scary stat. It's a dangerous stat, but one police officer has been shot every 22 hours in 2024 in this country. And if you were to ask people that, they would never know it. Joe, good morning. Appreciate you hopping on here in Kansas City on KCMO Talk Radio. How has that number changed here compared to previous years?
Hey, good morning, Pete. Thanks for having me on. Yeah, I don't think people know just how bad the war on cops has gotten in our country. Last year, we had 378 police officers shot. And just for reference, that is a 60% increase since 2018. It's the highest number since we started tracking the data back in 2018. And you would think, well, certainly that was the crescendo. It's not going to get any worse. Well, no, because in 2024, we are actually on pace to surpass that number. And we are experiencing one officer shot every 22 hours. If there was any other profession in our country that was experiencing the level of violence that we're experiencing right now, there would be congressional hearings every single day. Everybody would be calling for it to stop. Imagine for a second if this was journalists or politicians who are being shot at these numbers. My God, the whole country would shut down. But for police officers, who gives a crap? And I don't like to just talk about the problem. I actually like to provide solutions. And there are. It can start with President Joe Biden actually condemning the violence against law enforcement, this historic violence, because he hasn't said a peep. We haven't had a word out of the White House talking about the violence against law enforcement. And we could have House Republicans pass the Protect and Serve Act, which would make it a federal crime to knowingly assault a police officer. So we could actually throw these dirtbags in jail instead of just giving them a slap on the wrist like these rogue DAs like to do and let them right back out. And we could focus in our local departments on ambush training to try to prepare our officers for these attacks that we know are coming.
That is so well said. So, that's the way to solve it. What needs to happen on the local level as well? Because we know we've got rogue prosecutors. We have them here in the Kansas City area as well, who, frankly, we have cops, and I talk to them all the time. They are scared to death to prosecute or do proactive policing, I should say, because they don't want to be the target of the prosecutor's office. How big of an issue is that around the country?
Oh, it's a massive issue. We have rogue DAs and activist judges who have just absolutely killed our criminal justice system. Look at Kansas City, for example. Y'all had your highest murder rate ever last year. And it's because we're arresting the same people over and over again. And, they'll tell you, well, we can't incarcerate ourselves out of the problem. That's a load of crap. We absolutely can. There is a small segment of the population that commits our most violent crimes. And if we throw them in jail, we can actually get this under control. We can get them off the streets. And we can also send a message to every other criminal that this is not acceptable behavior, because all we have taught them, and basically an entire generation at this point, is that you will not be held accountable for your actions. And therefore, they continue to get more violent. They continue to commit more crimes. And as a result, you see the historic crime rates we have.
It feels to me, Joe, like basically they are effectively defunding the police without officially taking money away, but they're doing it because it's become such an unattractive job to so many people. You're in law enforcement, obviously, down there in Texas. You're a transplant down there, but I know you're down there. You're in law enforcement. We know how difficult it is here, and we've seen things like residency requirements get dropped. How tough is it nationwide, and how can that tide be turned, especially in the most dangerous parts of our communities?
Yeah, so it's as bad as I've ever seen it. I've been a police officer for 19 years. I'm an active night shift lieutenant right now. Retirements are up nationwide over 26%. Resignations are up 45%. And I think it's just showing you that people don't want to do this job anymore. And it compound that with the recruitment issues we have because nobody wants to become a police officer, and it's a recipe for disaster. How do we fix it? I think the step one is we stop treating officers like crap in America like we have for the better part of a decade. And the next is making sure we have competitive pay and benefits, and they're going to have to pay folks a lot because anybody who's got half a brain says, I don't want to be called a murderer. I don't want to be spit in my face. And we need local departments, local chiefs, local politicians, when police officers are doing their job and they're following policy, training, and the law, that you back them 100%. Because you know what police officers want? They want to be respected. They want to know that what they do matters, and that if they're following everything that they're supposed to follow, that they're going to be protected and supported.
So what about this Dexter Reed story that's getting more national attention here out of Chicago? 26 years old, shot and killed by the police. It was a traffic stop as well, but now we know that he shot at police first. I mean, you're talking, I'm sure, to people in the Chicago area about that case. I don't think this is a national story because if you shoot at police, it's not going to end well for you. But what are you hearing up there?
He shot a cop. He shot a police officer and tried to murder him. And suddenly, this individual this monster who shot a police officer is a sympathetic figure? No, I'm sorry. You know, every officer is obviously just enraged by this. And I love what the media loves to do. They love to stir it up because they're writing clickbait headlines about, oh, the officer shot him this many times. They're in a gunfight, folks. This isn't fantasy land, okay? You shoot and try to kill a police officer. Yes, officers are going to return fire. And it's simple as that. And I can't even believe that in America in 2024, we're trying to make someone who tried to murder a police officer and shot one a sympathetic hero. It's a joke.
Wasn't it President Biden who, once proposed cops shooting bad guys in the ankles and the knees and things like that? Was it him who came up with that idea a couple of years back?
Oh, man, there's been so many of these idiotic comments from politicians. Shoot the gun out of their hand, shoot them in the foot. This isn't T.J. Hooker, okay?
Joe Gamaldi, he is doing great work. He's coming off the night shift, but kind enough to join us here. Fraternal Order of Police National Vice President on KCMO in Kansas City. Thank you so much, Joe. We appreciate you, my friend, and we'll talk to you soon. Have a great day.
Thanks, Pete. Have a good one.
You as well. Joe Gamaldi on KCMO.